Today's topic is injury prevention, and I want to talk about, well, it's a secret, but one of my favorite purple patch athletes that I got to coach, Sarah Piampiano. Now, you might have heard of Sarah before. I've talked to her about her on this show quite a few times. And Sarah actually comes from a really unique background. She came to me as a amateur athlete. She was working on Wall Street. She was 29 years of age. She didn't really have much of a background in triathlon, but she was highly committed, and she'd actually been very successful through the rigors of investment banking and all of the demands that entails. And she applied the mindset traits that had honed and developed through that journey professionally and took them through into a professional triathlon career. And usually that goes the other way. You've heard me talk on this show so much about how an athlete's mindset is applicable to the business world. Well, Sarah's a really interesting case because she'd honed and developed those traits in the business world and applied them to sport. Very, very rare. She went on to become one of the most successful professional athletes in female American history at the Ironman distance. And since has gone on, by the way, in retirement to build a very successful real estate company and organization. So, a tremendous high performer and someone that we can draw a lot of inspiration and lessons from. But I want to actually talk about an incident that happened with Sarah that was about midway through her professional career. She had progressed over the course of 3 to 4 years, first couple of years as an amateur athlete, and then went on for the first couple of years as a professional and done pretty well. But she was struck with a major injury. And that's what I want to shine the light on, because this devastation, both emotional and obviously physical devastation that occurred, was really the catalyst that saw her go up to the next performance level by what she did through the process of having this injury. And I think that we can all draw a little bit of insight and lessons onto this. Now, we don't need to actually have the injury that occurred with her, and I hope that you don't go through something like this, but we can get ahead of the curve ourselves in this off season to really take the lessons out of this injury cycle. So what happened with Sarah? Well, we were training very, very hard, or at least I was telling her to train hard and she was doing it. And and Sarah was always an athlete that was highly driven, highly coachable, but maybe stepped onto the edges of under recovery a little bit, and without any emotional attachment to it, potentially not fueling enough as maybe her training demands desired. And a couple of weeks before one of her Ironman races, she said that her hip was hurting a little bit, and we went through the process that you would usually do with an elite athlete. And of course, there's a decision to be made here. And that's, should we race or not? Should we take a little bit of a risk? Should we try and go and race this Ironman race to hopefully go and get a win or a podium at least, which has a huge impact on her earning potential, both in prize money as well as sponsors? Or are we more pragmatic, wait a few months, rebuild, and hope the injury is not significant? And we went through all of the tests. We met with several specialists, and it seemed like it was going to be okay. And she could feel it, but it's always one of these gray decisions. It's not exactly black or white whether you should or you shouldn't. And I decided to allow Sarah to go and race the Ironman. I had a little bit of a niggling doubt, pardon the pun, a little bit of a niggling doubt that it was smart, but at the same time, we were both really ambitious. She'd really progressed. This was a key race for her. And about 20 miles into the run, so she got through the swim. She rode very, very well. She was in the hunt for the victory. I think she was probably not going to win, but was in the hunt for second or third place, was running through the field, and she felt something go. And that something going was actually her leg breaking. So what we missed, what the X-rays didn't show whatsoever, is there was a stress reaction that was turning into a stress fracture right at the hip and the femur, actually, and that leg bone, the upper leg bone, broke, and of course she couldn't finish the race. And that type of injury, a femur break, is really catastrophic. It is at least a 12-month out injury. But truly, before you are racing again, it's probably an arc of about 18 months that you have to think before you have any hope whatsoever of really coming back and been ready to race again. And so when you've got an athlete that has committed 3 to 4 years of consistent develop, gone through the amateur ranks, qualified as a professional, done very well, and is right on the cusp of breaking through to what you would label the world class level, to have that just stripped away is mentally devastating, physiologically very, very challenging. It's the greatest adversity that you can have. It's very different than just having a calf strain or a hamstring that takes you out of 6 or 8 months. There is very little that the athlete can do. She went through complete repair, complete rest, and then basically had to restart from the ground up. So this was very challenging, but here is where we arrive at the crux of the story. Because after the initial grieving that naturally occurs for the athlete, the frustration, the despair, knowing that they're going to go on a different journey, athletes and generally people can respond to this type of heavy adversity in many different ways. But Sarah approached it in what I would call a high performance mindset. And it was the perfect way where she said, this is now an opportunity for me to completely rebuild from the ground up and set myself up as I come back as a new athlete. Draw from the lessons of how I had been developing over the course of the last 4 years, and from the ground up, build the athlete that I want to become. And so that really involved several elements. Number one was habits. She worked with Scott Tyndall of Fuelin to really reinvestigate and set a path forward on how she ate on a day-to-day basis, how she fueled for her workouts, how she fueled for her racing, and how she hydrated. And from the ground up, that was a huge project. She also integrated new habits, starting when training was very, very low. It started with movement because she was repairing from a broken leg, all the way up to exercise and then training at the professional level. She integrated other habits, really smart habits around sleep and hydration, as well as global recovery techniques. So one big category that she just said, I am going to be more professional than I have, is around these big aspects of the habits that we talk about.